think these little critters here in this bowl are going to do really well. You know why I know? Because they're weeds. And they're doing really well in my yard. Hello everybody, I'm John Schneider and welcome to Jersey Bayshore Country. You know, every spring I think about being outside, and when I'm outside I like plants and grass and things to grow around me and flowers. And I always bring in my good friend Chip Nolan with Skytop Landscaping to talk to me about what I should be doing that I'm not doing and what he could do better, right? These things have invaded my yard, but enough about that. We're going to talk about in this episode a good yard and what kind of grass you should have and the kinds of grasses. And we're going to talk about weeds, and there are at least 10 varieties of weeds that I guarantee almost everybody has somewhere in their yard. They just don't know it yet, or it's off hiding in the corner. And we're going to talk about fertilizer and what you ought to be doing to make sure that your lawn is working. And I'm in my gardening clothes here. I'm not all dressed up like I usually am. And I'm not even sure I'm usually dressed up. But anyway, this is what I'm wearing today. And we got a lot of work to do outside. Chip, tell me all about Skytop Landscaping.
Skytop Landscaping was started when I was in 7th grade.
And you're in 8th grade now, aren't you? You look so young.
I'm 30 now.
Okay.
So I've been in business for a while.
Yeah.
I actually told a teacher I was going to open a company. She told her neighbors, and my parents actually drove me back and forth to all my jobs as a young child. And kept building it, and now I'm CEO of a company and have a large company.
We were walking outside my yard a little while ago. We were walking around, and I was showing Chip some of this stuff. These weeds. They're invasive critters. They're all over my yard. How would you grade my yard? What kind of grade? How would you evaluate it now?
Right now, 0 out of a 10. I would probably be about 5.
5. Okay. Well, here's the deal. I got to tell you right now. I am building this for my granddaughter, who is 3 years old, and she loves it out there. And I'm so nervous, about having her running around with with all these weeds underfoot. And this is being built. I'm going to finish it off today. So I want to get rid of the weeds, and we were talking about, when you say a 5, that's kind of like right in the middle of being really, really good or really, really bad.
Correct.
And we were talking before the show about whether this is such a severe problem as a 5 that we would want to rip out the grass and start over again and plant some new sod. Now, what did I originally have? That when we originally moved here, it was thick. It was a jungle, wasn't it? You saw it. And we were talking about how some people who live in the flood zone, that Hurricane Sandy could have really messed with their soil, right?
Correct. The pH levels would have been wrong. We would have had to rip out everything, bring in about 3 inches of new topsoil, and resod everything, and make sure you had a sprinkler system in there to water it. But if you're above the sandy zone, we would do that same process too.
Well, I was above the sandy zone, and I put in some soil anyway, and then put in some sod. What did I put in there?
You put in a Kentucky Bluegrass or fescue.
So what in the world could happen? Now, here's what I didn't do. I didn't have somebody like Chip come by every week to take a look at it and make sure. I said, you know what? I could do this myself. Well, it's obvious I cannot. What kind of grass did I have in there?
Kentucky Bluegrass.
And is Kentucky Bluegrass a hardy grass? Is it strong enough to beat off this stuff?
Mostly any grass won't beat off that stuff.
Really?
That stuff's going to come up no matter what.
This is nasty stuff.
Oh, it is. You got to remember, you have birds flying over, dropping seeds from the air.
See, this is the thing. I have my neighbors. I love my neighbors, but they feed the birds. And I used to feed the birds, but I no longer. I mean, they probably drop all kinds of seeds in there. So should I get something different than Kentucky Bluegrass?
We can look into that a little deeper and see what's around and what we can do. But usually the sod that we put in is what we do in most of everyone else's houses.
Yeah.
But what we could do is, at your property, there's a few different ways we can handle the situation.
All right.
We can either start from a brand new slate. We rip out the whole thing, see what topsoil looks like, check the pH levels in it, and resod. If it needs topsoil, we put new topsoil in. But your property, we can do a weed and feed. We will kill off about 99.9% of the weeds out of your property. And once we put that down and wait about 2 months and let it eat everything away and everything dies off.
Yeah.
Come back, we can hand rake the rest of it up and reseed the property.
But that takes 2 months.
Yeah, it will.
So you have to be patient if you want to do that. If you've got a lot of these weeds in here. So the date of this program taping is the beginning of April, and in a couple of months is June, and we're already having picnics outside. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you have a small enough area where I would almost come back in and rip out the whole thing and start from a brand new slate.
Yeah. Is it now I know that you'll come out and give estimates. I've seen you measure properties and take a look and see what can be done. Is it costly to put in a new lawn?
It's again about how big the property is. Like your property in the beginning, we had to rip out a jungle.
Oh, it was. I mean, you had trees and roots and all kind. You had a bulldozer that you brought in to get stuff out, right?
Correct.
Yeah, it was a jungle, and that probably doesn't help.
Doesn't help.
There's probably all kinds of stuff legacy seeds that have been down there in the soil
Correct.
for 100 years. So. What do I have mostly in the yard right now?
Backyard right now, you have more chickweed with anything.
Chickweed. Now, is that I don't know if you know. Is that a seed that birds eat? I don't
Believe so.
So chickweed. So chickweed is out there. What else is out there? Violets are out
Some
there.
violets.
Yeah. There is about 10 to 15 varieties of weeds, and I'm going to show them to you right now and try to explain them to you so that if you have any of these weeds, you'll know what to do. I think the one that's probably the most familiar to people is the dandelion. It's familiar in the spring and the fall, and they're perennial. I mean, they grow very long roots. And I guess the best control to get them out is to dig them up by hand. But you got to be sure you get at least 2 inches of the root, or the root will simply respout, and then you'll have 2 plants. It's like nature's bad trick. And they say that the best defense for dandelions is to make sure your lawn is healthy and it's thick. Because then the weeds that are carried by the wind will have a harder time taking root. And you can also spot spray dandelions with some herbicides, but and make sure that doesn't kill grass. So that's one thing, the dandelion. The other one that you probably see that may look like grass, but it really isn't, is crabgrass. It gets its name from the leaves, which form a tight crab-like circle, I guess. And this weed comes out every year, tends to appear in very weak or bare areas of your lawn. And you can over and under water the lawn, and that will help its growth. So don't over or under water. You got to have it just right. Also, mowing the lawn too short will bring up crabgrass. And you got to really treat crabgrass in the spring with herbicides to keep the seeds from sprouting. So that's crabgrass. You've seen it, and it's not your friend. Next is ground ivy. It can look pretty, and it's almost like a ground cover. It's also known as creeping Charlie, and it likes the shade. It likes moist areas of the lawn with a low fertility, but it can grow in the sun, so it can be anywhere. The stems spread over the ground like ivy, and they root at all the different leaf nodes, so you can have roots coming down as it spreads out. It's very aggressive, it's perennial, it's tough to beat, and you've got to use an herbicide to spray the plants. And watch out for creeping Charlie, otherwise known as ground ivy. This is white, or also called Dutch clover. You've seen all these, haven't you? A Dutch clover used to be a very common ingredient in lawn seed blends. They used to actually be part of the lawn seeds that you'd get. It's regarded as a bad guy, so do not, if you see it, get rid of it. It tends to grow in soil that's poor and low in nitrogen. You got to hand dig small patches and then apply fertilizers to the area, and these things can be really, really bad. Next is chickweed. I have a little chickweed in my grass. It's an annual weed. It prefers a shady, moist soil with high fertility, although its seeds will sprout also in dry soil. It appears in lawns that are thin and experience poor drainage. So if you've got a lot of wet spots in your lawn, you might have chickweed. And the best way to control it, it's like the dandelion, is to pull out the individual plants. If you have a pretty heavy infestation of chickweed, you can use a herbicide in the early spring and fall to prevent seeds from germinating. Another trick they say to kill it is to step on stems to crush them slightly and then sprinkle some lawn fertilizer over these broken plants. So there you go. Another weed is bluegrass, annual bluegrass. And so it is not grass, it's a weed, and it blends pretty well with fescue lawns, but stands out in other turf. It tends to appear where soil drains fairly poorly, and overwatering is occurring. That's another place that it might appear, and where you've scalped your lawn with the lawnmower. The seeds germinate in the late summer, so an herbicide application can help prevent seed germination, and you ought to consider aerating and adding some compost to improve the soil drainage where you see these weeds. These are annual bluegrass. This I have all over the place. This is broadleaf plantain. Sounds like plantain like the banana. The broadleaf plantain, again, is perennial. It tends to appear in poor, thin lawns with compacted soil. It's drought tolerant, but it thrives in overwater soil too. See, these weeds are like cockroaches. They grow anywhere. They can grow in shady or sunny conditions. So hand pulling, just like the other couple that we talked about, is probably the best option to control them. And make sure, as always, get the roots. This is the violet. Pretty, ain't it? Well, I've got violets in my yard, and yeah, they're pretty, but they are perennial weeds, and they appear in lawns that are thin lawns due to shady conditions. And it's a pretty purple bloomer, right? Don't be fooled by this weed's beautiful appearance. They can quickly take over a shady, thin lawn, and they're very, very difficult to eradicate. That is the violet. Now, these are called henbits. It's a winter annual that's in the mint family, and you can see some square stems among them. And like mint, I have some mint too. You got to keep mint contained because it'll grow like crazy. It'll grow like a weed. The weed spreads and roots along its stems, so it'll go over the ground, and roots will come out every once in a while. And the blossoms are pink to purple, and it's not very picky about sunlight. It'll grow in sunlight. It'll grow in park shade. Its arrival should signal to you that your soil is rich, and they're usually easy to hand pull. So if you got a heavy infestation, you should probably use an herbicide. But be careful you get an herbicide that won't kill your grass. This is Oxalis. Oxalis, or also called yellow wood sorrel, is a perennial weed that spreads by creeping stems and seeds. And the leaves, as you can see, sort of resemble clover, and yellow flowers will appear. And it really takes off in dry, open spots. So you're going to see it spreading through gravel mulch, but you'll also find it in moist, well-fed lawns. It's a tough weed to beat. You need to hand pull a few of these plants and then use an herbicide. This, I'm sure you've seen, this is called prickly lettuce. Prickly lettuce, annual weed. It thrives in the cool seasons. It's a winter weed in some of the southern areas, and it typically appears in disturbed soil. So if you've recently done some shoveling, but it will invade thin lawns with irrigated, nutrient-rich soil, and the leaves have prickles along their undersides, hence the name prickly lettuce, and the plants can be a little uncomfortable for bare feet. So much like a dandelion, these have long roots, which make hand pulling a challenge. So you got to be really careful and make sure you get the entire root. This is hairy bittercress. Meet hairy bittercress. It's a winter annual in some of the warm regions and summer annual in the cooler regions. And these plants appear where the soil is overly moist. And there are some flowers on these as well occasionally. Here's another one. This is the common purslane. Common purslane is a summer annual weed. It's got two roots, a taproot that goes down, and fibrous roots that form along these sprawling stems. And these weeds appear in thin lawns that aren't well watered. And they tend to take over in newly seeded lawns. So if you got a newly seeded lawn, be careful. And you can hand pull the weed, but make sure you get all the stem fragments. Now this is, I'm sure you've seen this, wild onion and wild garlic. Now wild onion and wild garlic have a similar appearance, and they're both fairly cool season weeds. Wild onion stems are solid, and the wild garlic has hollow stems. Both plants spread by seeds and bulbs, and they typically appear in a lawn that's thin, and they're difficult to control. So you got to start by keeping the plants mowed short, even in dormant lawns. And you can hand pull them, but make sure you get all the underground bulbs. That's a little tricky, and you might need a broadleaf herbicide to kill them. And make sure the label states that the product kills these plants and not the grass, like I keep saying. You should spray these weeds when they are growing and from 2 to 12 inches tall. Does weed and feed typically kill most of these common weeds?
The common weeds they will kill.
So dandelion and all that kind of stuff. And what do you think about these spot shot guns that go after a specific weed in the grass? Is that a good idea?
They're good ideas. I mean, we personally don't use them, but if you want to try it out and see what happens.
Right. So what we're going to do, and Chip has agreed to this, we're going to use my backyard as a test yard to show you what can happen. Now, I think we've decided that we're not going to do weed and feed on a scale of 5. If we were a 4, we'd probably definitely do it. But as a 5, it could go either way.
Back and forth.
The only advantage to putting in sod, I suppose, then, is that we can have a yard pretty quickly.
Correct.
And it doesn't take long to rip it out and put it in. I mean, depending on the yard size. We're not a mansion in Rumson, but and they don't have big yards all over there. But you could do it in a day, couldn't you?
Correct.
And so, what's the best treatment for a yard after it's in? Leave it alone?
I usually recommend watering it twice a day for 2 weeks. And once you can go up around the edges into the middle and try to pull up the sod, and if the roots have taken, you can get down to about once a day.
Okay. And
if it's super hot out going into the summer, keep doing it twice a day.
And when you say twice a day, I had last year, I think I mentioned, I had a $900 water bill. What time or at what position of the sun should you water? Should you water before the sun comes up? Should you water after the sun goes down? And how long should you water?
Usually I water 15 minutes each section of a property, break it down into sections. We technically water 6 and 7 o'clock in the morning if you have a sprinkler system, and then 6 or 7 at night.
And is it true you should never water in the bright sun when the sun is hot on the grass? You should never do that, or
you can.
Oh, really? Okay,
yeah.
You can. I thought it made it burned it more and all that. When you do something like weed and feed, and you're trying to get your yard back, I'm told that you should do one layer now, and then another layer in the spring, another spreading. Is that true?
I would.
And should you, once you lay down, or I guess it's not really lay down, it's spread the weed and feed, or the fertilizer for that matter, do you water it right away, or do you try to spread it right before a big rainstorm?
You just spread it right before a rainstorm.
Yeah, and that soaks it in?
Right into the ground.
Okay. And sometimes I heard that weeds can occur if there's not enough runoff in your yard. If your yard kind of soaks and gets wet a lot and gets kind of swampy, that can kill the grass and can promote weed growth.
Correct.
Is that, I'm right. I'm very so seldom right. So, okay, so now you're going to rip out the yard, and we're going to look at that right now because it's going to happen in the future, but we're going to insert it into this program. Take a look. What are the advantages of hiring a yard service like yours? What would you do versus some stupid guy like me? What do you offer?
We have the knowledge, we have the manpower, we have the right equipment for the job sites. Each house on commercial properties, everything's different. Nothing's the same job. So every house I go look at, and we get free estimates to take a look at properties, is different. So it might be like your property where we're going to rip it out and start from fresh. Might be another property, it might just be a little bit of chickweed where we can treat that lawn and wait some time, or it might be a property that has moles. And we might do a grub killer to kill the grubs in the lawn that the moles eat. Every house is different.
Yeah, I do notice little places that looks like little holes have been dug. I don't know what that could be, but...
Could be a mole.
Really?
Yeah.
Hate moles. They're creepy looking. Get rid of moles. So how often, I know in the beginning of the season it's more, but when you sign a contract with somebody, is it a contract for the season? How long does the season last? And how often do you come to cut the grass?
Well, for cutting, we do two different ways. We either cut every week, or we do every other week. You know, a lot of companies won't do every other week. They feel like they're just not making enough money coming in. So, with us, we don't mind cutting every week or every other week.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, contract-wise, we're trying to bill out end of the month.
Well, your Skytop, like I say, is one of many. You certainly see landscaping folks all over the place. But I will say this, as you pick out someone to help you, think about their expertise and their qualifications. How committed are they? And what other services do they provide? Because you really do provide year-round services,
Correct.
as most good services like this should. What are some of the other things that you do?
Well, first off, I want to say that we're a fully insured, licensed company. A lot of companies out there are not fully insured.
They're flying by the seat of their pants. They grab some guys and say, come on, we're going to go cut the grass, right?
Pretty much. We've been in business over 10 years, and we have the qualifications that a lot of people are looking for. But some of the service that we provide is lawn cutting. We take down trees. We do paver patios, walkways. We sell firewood, commercial, residential.
You landscape.
Oh, we do tons of landscaping.
Chip has helped me immensely as I participate in the Keyport Garden Walk every year, and just trying to every year come up with something different and something new. You had recommended a bloodgood maple back there, so what I do, went and got a bloodgood maple and planted it in the corner, and it's doing great.
Perfect. And we do planting, mulching, we do erosion control, drainage problems, machine operating, backhoe services.
Well, thanks so much, Chip.
Yeah,
I appreciate it and everything that you did. And would you like this as a consolation?
I would. Thank you.
It's my chickweed and violet planter. Anyway, thanks so much for watching another episode of Jersey Bayshore Country. Try to give you what you want, what you need. And if you see me out there in my yard, the backyard, the front yard, or in a garden store, or just enjoying the natural beauty of our area, please do stop me and introduce yourself. Because you know, like I always say, what do I say? Nothing is more important than meeting you. Thanks for watching, folks. So long. Bye-bye.